Let's talk Jinx, a weekly Jinx video we do every Wednesday about anything to do with Jinx, as well as this video acting as a weekly discussion thread on the Jinx subreddit r/LeagueOfJinx. Make sure to go check that out. And for today's video, you might have heard by now that Jinx is going to be a new champion in Teamfight Tactics. And part of the reason I didn't put out a video immediately about that announcement is I wanted to try and spam the PvE and actually get a feel for what she does in this game mode. Because there are people that still haven't even touched Teamfight Tactics. Either it doesn't appeal to them or they were waiting for like their favorite champion to get in. And most likely if you're watching this video, it's because you're one of your favorite champions, if not your favorite, is Jinx. So now that she is going to be in Teamfight Tactics, you might actually have some appeal or want or desire to possibly at least try out the game. So what I wanted to do was spam some games, get an idea of like how she functions in the game and stuff like that, to the point that the video for this one is probably just going to be gameplay footage in the background as I explain both A, what the Hextech Trait is that she has, a little bit about the other champions too to get an understanding of like what exactly is going on with all four of their introductions, and then of course Jinx specifically. So I'll really quick run down the trait. If you've never played Teamfight Tactics, each champion has a class and a trait. So for example, Jinx's class is a gunslinger, which is kind of its own thing, and you can get synergies by having her in on your board with other gunslingers as well. Different kind of classes, you might have heard like glacials, for example. If you have multiple glacial champions, 4 or more, you basically perma-stun the enemy team with a bunch of like ice in between their attacks and stuff like that. You can have brawlers, you can have demons, you can have all kinds of stuff, and Jinx's class is Gunslinger. Just like Vi, who's being introduced, her class is Brawler. Jayce is Shapeshifter, because he can go back and forth between the Hammer form and the Shock Blaster form, and Camille's is Blade Master. A trait, meanwhile, is more of a thing that your champion does specifically, and can also synergize with other champions as well, but it's some sort of like buff or ability. So the Hextech Trait reads like this: Hextech units temporarily disable enemy items. This is still under significant iteration, so the exact mechanic beyond this is not locked yet. Basically, if you start the game, since Camille is a tier 1 cost, meaning she only costs 1 gold to get her, if she pops up in your bottom bar, you get her, right? Jinx being a tier 4 cost means she's not going to appear until a little later. Though admittedly, at the time of recording this video on live, I played a ranked game of Teamfight Tactics, and they gave me Karthus before the second Carousel, and I kind of won the whole thing, which kind of feels scummy, but I'll take it because they gave me 100 LP off of it. So it's a little bit wild. On the PvE, it's also a lot of stuff is bugged. The Hextech Trait currently, when it disables items, will sometimes even delete an item, which is very terrible, but they're working on that, and hopefully by live, that won't exist. So getting feedback specifically for this was a little difficult, but if you have Camille, and let's say you pick up Jinx, it means if the enemy team has, items on their carries and stuff, some stuff that's going to be really hard to deal with, you'll temporarily disable those items for the beginning of the combat, and your team might be able to win. Also, if you're very new to Teamfight Tactics, you don't actually control your champions. You place them and you try and get synergies and stuff like that, and you can make stronger versions of each champion by combining 3 of them. And if you combine a total of 9 of them, you actually get like a 3-star version of the champion, which is really fantastic and powerful. I think it's kind of cool that, for example, even though this is the case with every champion, when you get them to the 2-star version, they have silver-cladded stuff. I think I said silver-cladded stuff. Jinx's Fishbones, the rocket launcher, turns silver, which is kind of like a throwback, in my opinion, to the ggGetJinxed music video, which, for whatever reason, in all iterations but the music video, Fishbones is blue, but in the music video it's silver, and then in this now it's silver when you do level Jinx up, if you do get her to 2 stars. So that's kind of a neat side part. But anyways, basically, you put your pieces on the board like a chessboard, and they auto-battle for you. And depending on the synergies, how powerful your units are, what items you're getting, that kind of dictates how the fight goes, who wins and who loses. There could be some cool moments though, like if you have a Kale who protects Karthus while he's channeling his ult when he was gonna die, and as such, because he survives, he gets his ult off. Positioning and stuff does actually kind of matter to an extent too, so if you're completely new to this, sorry, because there's a lot of information I'm dumping. If you're not new to this, but even if you haven't played it, hopefully this is making sense. If it's not, again, I'm sorry. For Jinx specifically though, each champion tends to have an ability. So we've talked about the tier that Jinx is. She's going to cost 4. She'll probably not appear until like a little later throughout the actual game mode because of that. She's a gunslinger, which means she'll synergize with other gunslingers and their ability, which I believe off the top of my head means it's one of 2 things. So there's rangers and there's gunslingers. Rangers I believe is the one that gives attack speed. If you have multiple rangers in, they all gain like 35 or 15 to 35 bonus attack speed depending on how many rangers you end up having in, up to 4. And gunslingers, I believe, means is the one where they could actually use multiple attacks. So like they'll fire one auto attack, but it'll still hit 2 people, kind of like Runon's Hurricane, which is ironic because Runon's Hurricane is an item in the game, and it's actually probably one of the weakest items of like the attack speed crit items in the game currently. So that's kind of an interesting back and forth right there too. So that's what gunslingers, I believe it's one of those two, either have it reversed or have it correct. So it means that if you have Jinx with, let's say, a Tristana and some of the other gunslingers, that's going to be a thing they're going to be able to do together. If you want to go that route and you don't want to go the Hextech Trait route, that's how these Hextech champions will be able to fit into other classes. If, let's say, your favorite champion is like Vi, Jayce, or Camille, you can put them in with those other classes because they exist. But the trait is Hextech, which is pretty cool. But each champion also tends to have an ability. For most champions, it's also their ultimate ability, unless it's like not impactful enough for something like that. And what that means is a champion usually starts with a mana bar at 0. And if they get hit or are dishing out hits, that mana bar goes up. And once it hits the max, they'll do some sort of ability. Most of them are gated if they're AoE by having to attack and be attacked first because they'd be a bit too powerful off the gates. Some honorable exceptions are things like Blitzcrank, where like you get a Blitzcrank because maybe the enemy's backline is really hard to access, so he'll just pull them to you, and you can maybe like kill their AD carry or mage pretty easily or fast because of stuff like that. With that being said, Jinx's ability is actually Get Excited, but they've kind of combined her passive with her Q ability, and it reads like this actually. Jinx gets more excited as she scores takedowns. After the first, she gains attack speed. After the second, she pulls out Fishbones for AoE damage on autos. And in the meta, basically given Misfortune, who's a tier 5 actually, or 5 cost, she channels her ultimate, but she can't functionally serve as a primary DPS because of how powerful her ultimate is. It's balanced there. Jinx will offer ramping AoE to auto attack damage through Fishbones in contrast to Draven's ramping single target damage, but she will be particularly squishy for high risk and high reward. Kind of like actual Summoner's Rift then, where it's like, if you're in-game Jinx, you could possibly single carry a team fight if you're not getting focused especially, but at the same time, if you are in-game Jinx with 20 kills and stuff like that, and you get caught, you're still just dead. You're not Tristana who can maybe rocket jump away and knock somebody away with the ultimate if you don't have Flash. If you don't have Flash, and put your 20 kills on Jinx, but like a Lee Sin gets behind you and insects you into the enemy team on the Summoner's Rift, you're still dead. They kind of carried that over here too, where Jinx gets to be exceptionally powerful, which is also why she cost 4 gold to get, which is a lot actually in this game in case you don't know, because she gets to also be super powerful. But she also is pretty squishy, which is why I think it's actually important for things like Vi to be introduced as well, because backline access can be kind of challenging. You usually would draft assassins to deal with the backline, and this is kind of addressing if Jinx is overpowered right now or not, because I've seen a bit of a back and forth where she is stupidly powerful, but it's because she costs a stupidly large amount of gold, so that weighs it out. On top of that, even with how powerful she is, once she activates Fishbones, it's gated by she having, when it says takedowns, it can't be assists though. Like on Summoner's Rift, when it has like the runes and stuff, when it says a takedown, it usually means an assist. With this, it has to be the last hit. She has to last hit a champion and be the killing blow to get the minigun attack speed up, and then to get it again to switch to Fishbones and then start really wreaking havoc. So that's gated by that. She's also really squishy unless you get her items and stuff like that as well, which because of RNG, you might not get items, right? And then on top of that, it's her cost, right? So how's that balance out though? Well, if she is too powerful, Vi, she can dive the backline. You would usually draft assassins, but because of where you place your pieces on the board, and if they walk up or not, they might block assassins from actually jumping that backline, Tristana, or Ashe, or Varus, Lucian, Draven, Jinx now, right? So now you have things like Vi, with her ultimate as an example, it's Assault and Battery. She'll lock on to the furthest enemy and charge toward them, knocking everyone else aside and dealing damage on impact. So you can have a Vi to counter the Jinx if you're someone that feels like Jinx is going to be really disgusting, or Gunslinger bonus is going to be really disgusting, and you want more backline access. Here's Vi coming, right? That's kind of how it works with Summoner's Rift as well too, right? Like if you're the jungler and you're playing against Jinx, you probably want to play something like a Vi that you can point and click on, who especially if they don't have Flash, they will probably die, right? So now that I've gone over most of that stuff, speaking just to the Teamfight Tactics in general, like I said, it was kind of buggy. The PvE tends to be buggy. It was really hard to get some really decent feedback in the footage that's probably still playing. What I would usually do for the sake of getting footage for this video is I would scrap a plot or a plan or idea or composition specifically just to go get Jinx. So you're probably looking at a lost montage, because I would literally sell like a 2-star like Tristana or something if it meant just getting a 1-star Jinx for this video. But the Hextech class I think will fit right into the meta, because one of the things about our conversation that started is, will this like crowd out or push out, you know, other things from the meta? I think no, because the thing about the Hextech trait and what it's doing, it's a counter to items, not necessarily a counter to a certain class of champion. So those classes of champion can still be very relevant, and then you can still want Hextech because, hey, the enemy Draven has red buff and it's going to be really hard to deal with him unless we use the Hextech trait and get that going for us. There we go. Because, and one of the reasons that's kind of important is also just because, like, if you can't get that backline access, right, like you can't get something like Assassins, or you can't even get Vi, maybe you don't get Blitzcrank, maybe you don't want Blitzcrank, you don't want to pull someone back there, right, like, that's fine. But then, like, you know, you want to be able to shut down those items. And fortunately, if the Hextech units get killed, because if you're playing against it, once you knock one of them down, the trait goes away as well. Not necessarily how the case works for Glacial, apparently, and I wish it would, where Volibear could just perma-stun somebody by himself, no other Glacial units on the board whatsoever. That's fantastic, he said sarcastically. With this one, I feel what's a bit more fair and balanced about it is if you have like Camille Jinx and you take out the Camille, the Hextech trait's gone now, you just gotta deal with the Jinx. I, of course, want to be super biased and just be like, Jinx is fine. I think people will complain about her because thanks to the RNG, you might not get the units to deal with her like you would on Summoner's Rift. If you see Jinx and you're like, oh, crap, I don't like playing against that champion, but this is what I can draft in, you know, Champ Select, right? In this game, there's a bit more elements of RNG to deal with. Now, granted, the whole point of being good at Teamfight Tactics is about mitigating the RNG. Like, RNG isn't something new that Riot invented, right? RNG's existed in card games. I'm not even talking like Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff like that. I'm talking, go back to blackjack, go back to poker. Like, that's been a thing that's existed far beyond video games' existence, by the way. Life, you can even say, is about mitigating RNG. This video might not, you know, break, say, 50 views. Not that I deserve a billion views, but like in terms of doing like YouTube and even stuff like that, right? Like all things in life, you can wake up tomorrow and suddenly your elbows and knees just hurt and you just gotta deal with it, right? Like, just putting that out there that yes, if you are attracted to this game because Jinx is coming to it, you might eventually hit that wall where you're like, I really don't like the RNG. I will say, don't do like I did and try and shoehorn Jinx into every composition. Kind of go with the flow a little bit, right? Like if the game drops you 3 Nidalees in the very first minion round, maybe it's a sign that you're just going triple Nidalee, at least to start this off, and then you can switch up your comp later. But Jinx particularly will kind of fit into a lot of comps actually, so even if RNG is one of the things that frustrates you, in terms of Jinx specifically, I think she does fit right into different things you can do. So you don't have to go Hextech Trait basically is what I'm saying for Jinx particularly to work. With the other champions, this isn't really about them, but I think they can, like I said, because of their classes, fit into some other stuff too. But like you could have Jinx with a beefy front line and maybe some backline protection, or Karthus, because Karthus is busted right now, and I learned that I want to say the hard and easy way, because I abused him at very early to get a ranked 1 win, and that was, I still feel bad about that. But anyways, yes, Jinx is coming to Teamfight Tactics. Are you excited about it? Are you not excited about it? Because maybe you actually didn't really want to touch Teamfight Tactics because you've played games with RNG mitigation and you didn't like them. But maybe this will be the tipping point. You're like, I gotta at least try it because Jinx is in there and she'll be coming next week when the new patch drops. With that being said, that's also why I didn't do an immediate video on it. I wanted to combine all this knowledge, all these conversations I've tried to have about both Jinx and Teamfight Tactics and stuff like that into one video for the Wednesday Jinx video, since that's what most of y'all are here for, and I really appreciate it, by the way. So, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification, the actual subscribe button. Share the video as well. That's how we grow. That's how we get more Jinx fanatics up in here, and we just all have a good time. So, I don't know which video will be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So until this time, take care. ggGetJinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.